Okay guys, so we have half an hour left where I'm going to kind of talk about the voice service that we launched in Office 365. So I kind of touched on it this morning, and I'm just going to go a little bit more detail to make sure everybody understands what we have announced and actually how it might be of use to you guys. Okay. So what we announced in December was it was two things again. And coming back to what I mentioned this morning, we're really going to focus on meetings and on voice, right? So that's what the two categories you see here. So we talked about the Skype meeting broadcast. You remember the service I said that will scale up to 10,000 users. That's gone live since the 1st of December. And if you are already using Office 365 with Skype for Business, then you probably actually can enable that. We also mentioned the PSN conferencing side of things, where I said you can get a telephone number now from Microsoft to be able to enable your conferencing solution. So that went live on the 1st of December in 15 countries. US, UK was obviously one of those. And then in the 1st of March we added another 17 countries. That's why it says now 32 countries where we have gone live with this. That means if you're in one of those 32 countries, you can actually buy this as an option to add it to your portfolio. If you are outside of those, as it says, that's phase expansion, so later on we'll add some additional countries. I can give you more details if you're interested in where we are and have launched this. So that's kind of with regards to the meeting side of things, and then of course the other side is the voice side of things. So the big announcement with regards to voice is the fact about the cloud PBX, right? And there are two ways you can connect to the telephony network, on-premise and through PSN calling, and I'll go in more detail in a moment. So bear with me on that one. And then the last thing I want to announce here, or actually make you aware of, is that, by the way, how many of you actually are familiar with the Office 365 services? So I mentioned very briefly this morning, as I said, Office 365 is kind of the Microsoft hosted solution, and in the simplest form you can see that Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Skype for Business Online, right? So the idea here is that if you didn't want to put anything on premise, and say you want to move and get rid of your Exchange on-premise deployment, you could actually move it into the cloud. Now, one of the things that was kind of a little bit of a limiting factor, especially with regards to Skype for Business, is that if you were deploying that on Office 365, you had to decide in which country or which data center you would like to run this from. So if, for example, you're in the UK, then you would probably want to put it into a European data center. If you were, for example, a multinational company, then you might want to have to think about very carefully whether it's going to be in the US, UK, EMEA, or in Asia Pacific. And so especially for kind of the large organization with multiple locations around the world, this single tenancy or single kind of locations is a bit of a limiting factor, because as soon as you talk about conferencing calls, all those conferencing calls will be hosted on the kind of the Skype for Business server that we have, wherever that one might be positioned. So the further away you are from this kind of MCU or the conferencing bridge, kind of the worse the experience is going to be. So especially for multiple multinational companies, that's kind of a limiting factor. So what we announced here also that in kind of our minds Q3, Q4 time frame, we will actually are supporting multi locations from that perspective. So you don't really have to select a single kind of data center region anymore to be able to deploy it. I don't know how relevant this is, but some people have been asking. So as I mentioned, I'm going to have a little bit more detail on each of those things I just mentioned. So we talked about the broadcast meeting. It will kind of scale out to roughly 10,000 users. There's no real reason we couldn't go above it, but as I think at the moment what we have tested, right? And as I mentioned, the way it works is you use Skype for Business to actually send or stream the video and the PowerPoint presentation from, for example. And then the guys that actually want to watch this will use a browser, whether they use it on a laptop or on a phone, etc. The one thing that you of course have is if you are using broadcast meeting as kind of your service, if you want to get any feedback from the audience, that's going to be a bit tricky, right? Because after all, now the guys that using the browsers are just using a browser. How do you get any feedback from this? So you have a couple of mechanisms that we are playing around with, and let's say are available to be kind of incorporated into that stream. One of them is Yammer. Everybody familiar with Yammer? So that's kind of as you know, kind of our position as well, so our service as well from Microsoft perspective, where you can create chats, etc., and everybody can keep track of what's happening in the company or in your group, etc. And you could actually embed it as a stream into your broadcast meeting stream. So you could set up a separate Yammer thread And people could actually then reacting while you're presenting, also hey, I have some questions, etc. So that's one way of doing this. The other way you could do it is using Bing Pulse. And Bing Pulse, I don't know, anybody familiar with this? So you might have, there's no slide in it, but you might have seen sometimes in the background also on TV shows where there's this kind of graph going in the background saying, I'm actually agreeing with the presenter, and then later on somebody else says something else, and then kind of the mood goes down. And the way it works is that people can on their apps say, I like what he's saying, or I hate what he's saying. So that's kind of what Bing Pulse is about. And it's very simple to use. You can set up that on, if you go to pulse.bing.com, then you actually can set up a free account and actually play around with it. It's very interesting, it's very nice, but I have to warn you, if you put this on, you know what you're asking for, right? So quite often what we see is when we run those internal events, like we have a thing called Tech Ready, and then all our kind of engineers are coming together these days, 3,000 to 5,000 people. And they're sitting in those massive auditoriums, and we have those very HD large screens on the background where everybody's standing on the podium. You can't see the guy who's actually presenting, but you can see the reaction of the audience, right? Because you say, hey, we didn't like that. So be aware when you're actually setting this up. So that's kind of another way to kind of at least get feedback from the audience you're presenting to. Obviously, because it's a streaming type of service, you could actually pause it, you could rewind it, so you want to have a quick break.
Could you change it?
Say again?
Could you change it?
Change the video. That's probably in the next release. So so those are kind of all the things you would expect from a streaming service anyway. The last thing I want to mention is, because of course when you talk about scaling up to 10,000 users, it's slightly a more, I should say, professional setup that you would expect from such type of service, right? Because if I'm just creating an ad hoc meeting for, let's say, 10 people, you set it up and off you go. If you're kind of trying to set up a streaming session like this for 10,000 users, you want to make sure everything is okay, right? You want to maybe set up a pre-meeting, you want to make sure that you have the right HD cameras in the room, you will maybe swap and switch the video streams on the go. So you have also roles like producers where while you're presenting, the producer can actually change the video stream that you are actually embedding into this broadcast. So it's a quite professional approach to the service as well, and very handy, I would say, if you are using those type of scenarios once a quarter or once every 6 months. The PSN concept bit, and I do apologize for the graphs in a moment. It's just I want to make sure that everybody gets it, especially when I try to explain this in Microsoft account teams. They don't get voice, right? So every time I want to make it as simple as possible. So please, apologies for that. But what I normally try to say is that PSN conferencing has been around for donkey years, right? It's nothing new. BT has been doing it, WebEx is doing it, etc. And the only thing what we are saying now is that rather than actually using a third-party service, I mentioned the ACP partners in the past. We actually said, well, the conferencing bridge, by actually making sure we have a gate or a connection between our data center and the telephony network, we can actually do something similar, right? So it's nothing new. It's just making sure that if you wanted to add this as part of your conferencing service, Microsoft actually has provided this. So what's the advantage from your perspective? I would say, well, at least it gives you a full single solution to do all your kind of meeting needs, including this broadcast meeting, including the telephony dial-in thing. But I think even more important is this thing about the commercial proposition. But
it's on-prem, sorry. Can you do this in an on-prem solution?
So on-prem obviously was already given, right? So if you put, let's say, Skype for a business server on-premise, yes, you would just use the normal SIP connectivity or E1 ISDN lines to be able to kind of break out. What we are announcing here is really kind of, if you have Office 365, previously we were not connected to the telephony network, and that's what we really announced. The kind of idea I want to give you here is that actually the pricing that we have actually come up with for the PSN conferencing, in our eyes is actually very attractive, because we are charging $4, which is roughly £3, actually less than £3 per month per user. So if you are running, let's say, a conference call for, let's say, 5 people for an hour, and you use kind of another type of service, let's say BT Meet Me or whatever, you might have been paying something like 3, 4, 5 cents per minute. And it's, if you can get your hands on what you're actually spending internally on your broadcast meetings, on your telephony meetings internally, you might actually have already a case study and a a business case together for your own Skype for Business side of things. So very attractive from that perspective. So if you are looking at a different solution, consider this one too. So the idea, therefore, with kind of the meeting side of things, that whether you're using web conferencing, broadcast meetings, and actually enabling with dial-in capabilities, that should be all kind of part of your proposition from a meeting perspective. The cloud PBX, I mean, again, similar apologies up front. I'm just trying to explain it, especially the guys who are not really familiar with this. What are we trying to achieve with cloud PBX, right? So this, of course, is kind of all given, hopefully, to you, right? You make a call as soon as the PBX, meaning the telephony system, doesn't recognize the number. That means it's not an internal call, and therefore it has to be connected to the outside world. So what you normally will have in place is kind of a gateway or an ISDN connectivity to your service provider. That could be BT, Verizon, AT&T, whoever you might actually be using for that. What we decided, or what we did is actually, and there are two things to keep in mind. One is that you have this physical piece of kit that you probably have on premise to be able to provide this telephony equipment or the telephony routing of the calls, and you will have probably a contact in place with one of your telcos to be able to bill for the minutes. So the cloud PBX is really that we are providing an opportunity, an opportunity to actually move away kind of the physical hardware into the cloud. So we will then care, as part of Office 365, we have this thing called Cloud PBX, will take care of the routing of the call. So if it's an internal call, it will signal up if this person is trying to call. You'll realize it's an internal call, it will actually route the call to one of your other extensions. If the Cloud PBX realizes it's an external call, we don't recognize this number, then there are two ways to connect to the telephony network. One is to use kind of an on-premise gateway. Last week we announced the availability of this thing. It's called Cloud Connector, and the whole idea about this is that it's kind of almost like an appliance, right? A couple of VM images that you put on a server, which then connects to your SIP connectivity that is connected to your telephony provider. So that's the first way of actually connecting to your telephony network. That's what we call Cloud PBX with Cloud Connector. And the other way is, as a logical follow-up from the previous thing I said, since we already put this connection in between the data centers and the telephony network, we can actually also provide directly contact or connection between our data centers and the PSTN. And that's really what we then call Cloud PBX with PSTN calling. So there are two ways, and actually they are not mutually exclusive. You can actually combine them and mix them up if you wanted to. So what does that mean? So with Cloud PBX, the whole concept is really about routing of calls in the cloud and how you then connect it to your existing telephony provider, maybe through either an on-premise deployment that you might already have. If you already talk about Skype for Business on-premise, you can leverage that. If you're completely new to Skype for Business and you want to still use your existing telephony contracts, then you use, for example, something like a Cloud Connector edition. Or if you want to, at the later stage, want to say, hey, my contract with my service provider is end of life or it is finished, I can look at different options now, then you could consider Microsoft as another option as well. What is the advantages from a customer perspective? It could take care of your PBX, so rather than actually trying to maintain the old PBX you have in place, and you think about moving your kind of intelligence to the cloud, that might be an option. How you then connect it out to the telephony network, as I mentioned, Cloud Connector, or for PSTN calling. Having said all of those things, obviously, we launched it in December, right? So when we launched it in December, we created Cloud Connector, and Cloud PBX, and Cloud PBX was available everywhere worldwide. The PSTN conferencing is available everywhere worldwide. The PSTN calling bit, the last bit I talked about, where Microsoft becomes a service provider, was launched in the US, but it's actually coming to the UK probably in June, July timeframe. So we are going to go in preview next month, and then later on, June, July time, it will be going to GA as kind of a generic service in the UK. However, this is a Microsoft offering, right? So it's going to be launched on Office 365, as you would expect. But there are the normal kind of in a way, things you have to be aware of when you talk about Office 365. It's a multi-tenant solution. In a way, what you see is what you get. So if the requirements you have are kind of fitting with what Office 365 can provide, then it's perfect. Also, you have to keep in mind we have just launched it, so we're adding features over time, and therefore you really need to check out what the requirements are from your perspective with regards to telephony and whether the cloud PBX is the right way for you to go. So maybe at least it will allow you to kind of start mapping things out if you are thinking about moving to the cloud. And therefore on the right hand side you see that's kind of a deployment option you can keep in mind. From the other side, if you say, well, actually, I'm maybe a financial organization, I have very secure requirements for my infrastructure, I want to stay on premise. Obviously, on premises deployment is an option on the table as well. Or you might want to say, hey, for specific scenarios, let's say call recording or integration with a contact center solution that you already have in place, I actually have to stay on premise because that's the way at the moment we can provide this type of integrations. But at the same time, I like the new service that Microsoft's talking about. Let's say, for example, broadcast meeting, because I don't really want to scale it out on an on-premise deployment. Then obviously, you can actually have a hybrid scenario like that. And again, Britannic would be, very nice place to talk you through all the different options and see how it best fits with your strategies. So, in summary, if you are looking at kind of the cloud and trying to figure out what the roadmap for you could look like, Cloud PBX might be something that you want to consider. A later stage we'll get PSTN calling in the UK, but that doesn't mean you can't use Cloud PBX today. You can use, of course, the existing on-premise infrastructure or for using the cloud connector. But at the same time, we really want to talk and make sure that everybody can use whatever voice requirements you have by using Skype for Business. I have then a couple of slides to kind of talk very briefly about the different licensing package you have, and I'm by no means a licensing expert, right? So I'm just trying to give you a very quick overview of what kind of we call them SKUs, what we have in place to be able to provide those different feature sets. So Microsoft loves to sell things in bundles, and so we have created this thing that we call E1, E3, and E5. And they are actually bundles of functionality. So E1, as you can see here, is a bundle that allows you to use Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, and Skype for Business Online. And from a Skype for Business perspective, if you take the E1 SKU, that allows you to do IM presence as well as actually the conferencing side of things, without PSTN calling, by the way. The PSTN conferencing as a dialing number. So with E1, you get the capability to set up meetings, as long as anybody has a Skype for Business application or the web browser, that's how you actually take care of this. You can also see that even in the E1 SKU, we have added this broadcast meeting service. So if you are already on Office 365 E1 SKU, then the broadcast service that we have announced is actually available to you as part of the E1 SKU. When we talk about E3, from a Skype for Business perspective, it's the same set as a E1, but you have some additional things that are coming in as the part of the bundle, so including the Office client applications. That's most of the time the reason why people go from E1 to E3. From a voice perspective, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the SKU that we call E4. Is anybody familiar with E4? Okay, then I'm not even going to touch on that. So without kind of voice, E1 and E3 would actually provide you with, as I mentioned, instant messaging and presence as well as conferencing. If you wanted to use the Cloud PBX functionality that I just talked about, then we are kind of positioned as E5 SKU. But again, because it's a bundle of stuff, it's not only about the Cloud PBX, right? So we'll see here the Cloud PBX, as well as the PSTN conferencing bit, but we also are starting including things like security and things like Power BI. And again, we have very little time today, but very happy to give more information about it maybe at a later date. But it's all about kind of visualizing the data. For example, if you have Excel sheets or any kind of SQL database, you want to visualize it and make it available to your end users. Power BI can actually do this. And again, we have bundled that in together with the E5 SKU. So what that means is for E5, and by the way, the prices I'm putting on there are just list prices, just to give you kind of a flavor of what it actually includes. But the other thing, interestingly, as well, is that the PSTN conferencing side of things is included into the E5 bundle. Okay, so the dial-in number I was talking about, the $4 or £3, as mentioned, per user per month, is actually included in the E5 SKU. The one thing also to be aware of is that the PSTN calling thing, where Microsoft becomes the telco, is actually always an add-on on E5, being on top of the Cloud PBX. So Cloud PBX is the functionality where we take care of the routing of the things. If you then want Microsoft to be kind of the billing engine, as well as the cloud provider, the service provider, that's an add-on of either $12 or $24. Because what we have done is we have actually bundled those minutes into 2 SKUs. One is a domestic bundle. For $12 you get roughly 3,000 minutes per user per month that you can use. They are pooled on a per tenant basis. So what that means is if you have 10 people taking the domestic bundle, then 10 times 3,000, 30,000 minutes that can be shared by those 10 people. The second plan, and that's what they actually shown here, the highest number is $24. That means it's for international calls as well. So you will get 3,000 minutes maximum on domestic calls as well as an additional 600 on international calls too. And so that's how we actually package this up. Now there might be a situation where you think, well, I'm actually very interested in the cloud PBX side of things, or maybe even the business and consulting side of things, but the Power BI, I'm not really looking into it at the moment, and the security things I'm not really interested either. You can actually add those things from a Skype for Business perspective on the existing E1 and E3 SKUs. So if you think E5 is it's a nice bundle, but it's kind of one step too far away from me now, but I'm interested in the cloud PBX or the competency side of things, you can add this on the E1 or the E3 SKU. So for, again, the $4, which is the £3, you'll get the PSTN dial-in conferencing capability. If you want to cloud PBX, you can add the cloud PBX SKU to the E1 or E3 thing. If you then add the PSTN calling bit, which is kind of the thing that we were launching in preview next month and then going live in the July timeframe, then you can add that on the cloud PBX side of things. That was in a whistle tour very quickly about the different licensing options you might have. In the end, it all comes down to what are your requirements. We are very happy to help you, and Botanic obviously as well, to position it in the right way. So with that, I kind of finished that side of the presentation. Any questions on that?
So did you say July? You can buy this, or?
Yeah, so it's going to go in preview next month.
Yeah.
I mean, actually there's a limited preview going on in the UK at the moment. It's going to be enlarged in May timeframe. My product marketing manager says June. I'm just like, sorry, I'm on the cautious side, and I'll say June, July time. Just because, yeah. And the problem is not because of the technology side of things, it's all to do with the legislation, right? Yeah. Being a telco. So this is holding us up a long time. Because now we really start talking about becoming a telco for any organization in the UK. Any other questions? Yeah? Back to
Thank you. Bang on time. Look at that. Well done. So I think the next one was, if people wanted further demonstrations, we're happy to do this, or I think we've offered the floor out for questions, so if people want one-on-one discussions, we're here, we're happy to help. Were there any further demonstrations anyone wanted to see of the technology talked about today? Have we covered off what we needed to do?
I'd like to see an actual video call working, because it didn't work, did it?
It didn't? No?
Yeah, that's I know. So I think back to my colleagues. So thank you very much for asking that. I think it's crossed, it's going to work.
It always seems to be the same with people do demonstrations.
Well, you're very right. So let me show them.
While you're doing that, can I just ask a question?
Yeah, definitely.
It's regarding to Skype. When you're actually showing a video conference and people are sort of connecting, if somebody rings in, you get this ghastly picture showing up, which it takes over the whole of the screen, especially if it's just one person. I'm not sure if anybody else is aware of that. Is there any way of being able to get rid of it? Obviously, if more people are calling in, then those pictures gradually get smaller and smaller, and they're sort of trickling down. But is anywhere you can actually select to unplug it, because there is an unplug button which doesn't work, and you sort of unplug it, but it's still there. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I know what you're saying. You can unplug it, but you still see first the
But you
picture.
say unplug, but it's still there. It doesn't do anything.
So when you take it out of the frame, you mean?
No, when you actually click on the word unplug, it's sort of a toggle switch.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't do anything. It still stays there.
Okay.
And it's still very, and more to the point, I would like to reduce it, because the whole point is it could be Joe Blobsoff bringing in, and he'll have the bigger picture, and the person speaking will have a tiny little picture in the corner. So is there any way of sort of changing that round?
I don't know if you know the answer to that.
No, I don't know it straight away, so I'm just trying to see, because of course Kerry has gone offline again.
I'm also like Charlie. I know enough to be dangerous, and then I've got technical people behind me.
Well, we're in sales.
Is anybody of our guys online?
Anybody online? No?
All the Microsoft people are offline.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's late in the afternoon, isn't it?
Don't laugh.
2:30.
Thursday is the new Friday.
Yeah, it's that work-life balance.
The thing is, I normally use your Polycom rooms, but they are offline at the moment. The video demo rooms.
Are you,
Have
you got- okay.
We have chance of a demonstration.
No, I find that, hold on.
We've built a cloud demo solution, so we can take it into people, plug it in, and start showing it. So.
come on, Robbie, you must have some friends.
Now you're putting me on the spot.
Charlie's got 10.
Yeah, I've got 10.
Yeah, we all in the pub.
Oh dear. Where's everybody when you need them?
You're not
Cool.
showing online either, are you?
No, I put myself away because.
I'll have to go to Polycom's office then, that's nearest.
No.
You're more than welcome, more than welcome. I mean, I guess the best thing for that is to book through you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so if you want to come, just book through Jonathan, or whoever is your account
Yeah,
manager.
okay, I'll talk to you.
I'm
And
just
if
trying
you
to
need a
go
refresh
over
of this, we're running the same again at Polycom on the 30th of June, so it's anyone else that you want to send it on.
Yeah.
So,
We'll have probably exactly the same session that we've done today. We're going to
Yeah,
run
that's
Polycom,
it's a bit
so
late.
our offices at the end of June. So
See what I can do really.
That's what I was referring to.
yeah.
Hey.
yeah.
Hey, Jan.
Oh.
Hey, how are you guys?
Fine, great. Thank you very much for coming online because you're putting me on the spot here that I didn't have any friends.
I'll always be your friend.
Yeah, great. So, as I said, look, that's the way it should work, right? Stuart's laptop, I don't know for whatever reason he had it set up for video, but normally, as I said, quick single click, off you go. I mean, Jan could share his desktop as we did with Stuart. We could do a whiteboard session, etc. But it's really as simple as that, and I don't know why he didn't set up this video.
Okay.
But this is the way we work, right? So I'm very confident doing this, although I don't have any friends. But this is the way we communicate, right? This is our live system. So if this wouldn't work, then we wouldn't be able to communicate with ourselves.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions to Jan that you wanted to show, or okay? Anybody else?
She wants the button to work.
Oh yeah, with the video picture thing. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, I think the other thing to point out as well, as I'm watching what you are doing, because of the equipment that is in the room, I can see the focus shifting to the person that is talking. So when Robert is talking, I can see a focus on him, on his screen. And when the other people in the room start talking or making noise, I will then see the focus shift over to that person, so that I always see, I see a stretched picture of the room underneath me, but I also see a focused version of it as well.
Oh, that's a good point. So
Having the right equipment is important.
can you share the desktop?
Yeah.
If you join another person to the call,
Yeah.
and we will be able to see the whole room underneath.
Well, you
can
will
see
already
people.
be able to see that, right?
But you can, but we
You
can't.
will be able to see it.
We will be able to see it. If you join someone else, that camera will pick up the bottom of all this room,
Yeah.
and then there'll be another window coming up where there's a focus on the person who's
Correct.
talking.
But, Jan, do you see the panoramic view at the moment?
I have a panoramic view at the moment. I'm trying to do it now, just a
If
bit.
you just share your desktop, it's not going to be a great picture, but at least you get an idea what the guys will see, right?
Or we can just
But that
find another
person can
friend.
actually alter it.
Yes.
That's asking a lot.
And they can actually
No, my
alter it
friends.
if they want to. They can see that these are the contents of the
Correct. So you can see, this is what Jan is seeing now from his point of view, right?
Right.
So he can see the one who stopped talking, so when somebody else picks up, it actually, the focus will change, or a shift, but at the same time he sees also the kind of the round to the room view.
Oh, that's quite clever, isn't it?
So it's a piece of intuitive software in the sense of how it conferences everything in terms of whoever is speaking, it will pick up the person that's speaking. So, okay.
Yeah.
Feels quite
And-
natural, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're looking into a meeting, right? For us, it doesn't even matter because we're sitting around this table anyway.
Yeah.
But for Jan, who's actually now, I dragged him into this thing and I said, where am I, right? He can actually see that,
Yeah.
I don't know, like 15, 20 people in the room and has at least an idea of what kind of environment he is in.
And the same principle with the Eagle Eye Director as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Okay, Jan, thank you very much for quickly jumping on the call.
No problem, pleasure.
Okay.
Have a nice night.
You too, bye. So yeah, so that was one of the things I'm glad you asked, because I really want to get you and see this in action, right? Because we do it all the time, and it's really an easy thing to do. The thing is, it depends also a little bit on the culture of the company you're from, right? Because although this is all enabled, sometimes people are not using it at all, or there are certain policies in place where you always have to use video. So I think in protocol you always have to use video, right? But that's kind of the default.
We just naturally, we just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft, of course, we are trying to push it, but at the same time, if it's a one-to-one, you normally probably do a voice call. But as soon as there are multiple people in the call, then we automatically escalate to video because it's nice to see everybody around the table.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to, because now I'm in demonstration mode anyway, the one thing, well, thanks Debbie, because it didn't really help either. I was going to, at the moment what I've been showing you is kind of very much the vanilla deployment stuff, right? I've talked about, in a way, the free workloads. I'm a presence, conversing, and on voice. But of course, you can, because it's a Microsoft product, there are very rich APIs, SDKs integrated to other stuff. So a little thing that we have done, and that might actually springs to mind as well, is we have integrated with our help desk application. So in our case, if I say hi to our help desk, it actually does two things. One is it allows me to get into an interaction with a bot. So it actually asks me some questions about what my problem might be. And maybe I have a problem with, I don't know, my VPN, and it will give me options how I would like to connect to the help desk. So this is almost like, normally I would dial into an IVR, say press 1 for, I don't know, I have problems with my CRM, or 2, and then you go into this whole menu of things that you trying to get an answer to, right? This is very quickly, on the left hand side, allowing me just to interact with the bots, kind of VPN's my problem, etc. Or on the right hand side, you can see we actually extended the IM window to, in a way, enable some other stuff in there. So this is kind of our help desk situation. You can see I actually haven't really logged any problems at the moment, but I could, if I had a problem, I could say, hey, I have a problem with collaboration sharing. By the way, this would never happen, right? So we would never have Skype issues.
Definitely not.
And if you click on those, you see it doesn't even give any option anymore.
It's still loading.
It's probably still loading. But what it should show
Service
you.
manager in the background.
Sorry?
Is this service manager in the background?
I don't know what we're using in the background. It might be. I
There
don't
must
know.
be something that it was.
But it kind of.
Given it's a Microsoft product, as you would have thought. That's just interesting because I would like to know more about this.
Yeah. So just to give you some ideas on how, yes, it's great for all this kind of workloads I just showed you, but there's so many more things you can do. Some other examples that also can, give you some ideas. If, for example, there was an organization that created an app to, the guy got so fed up with every time on Fridays to try to say, people, can you please fill in your timesheets? So rather than actually wait for the guys to fill in the timesheets, he then had to create this thing where as soon as you become green on a Friday afternoon, it'll actually pop up an IM saying, hey, could you please fill in your timesheet? And then actually extend the window. So in the extended window, you can fill in your details or the details of your the timesheet and straight away submit it. So two things here. One is that you don't have to go into a third party op anymore, right? So it's there and then it's popping up. And secondly, it actually uses the presence to try to get that information from that person when he's available. Because the last thing you want is that somebody's popping something up when you're already doing some other stuff and you're busy. So it is clever enough to say, for example, hey, you are now available, maybe this is the right time to do the timesheet. The effect of that kind of exercise was that nobody's going online anymore.
All Thursday. They're finishing. They're going offline early on Friday. Yeah.
So that's one of the things as well. And we have a whole raft of example integrations we have done to bring it to life, right? So, for example, for healthcare, we have some examples here where, again, we're using actually, I have to log into this stuff, but we have integrated into a right? So it's going to make this larger slightly. And so what we have done here is, for example, create a website where there's a bot on the right hand side. So if you have, for example, problems with, I don't know, your hands or your ligaments and so on, it actually the appropriate questions and an actually direction to the right person that can help you with this type of problems, issues. So what we have done is we have kind of 6 or 8 different types of integrations just to kind of bring to mind in the different verticals. So these are all on YouTube, and after the meeting, after the session today, I will send you this, and you can actually see there are different examples of how in the financial service hosting groups and so on, how different integrations actually could look like. Just to give you some ideas that on top of just the normal workloads, you can embed it to really kind of solve business requirements. Okay, and I will take kind of step by step through what this gets done. Anything else that you would like to need to demonstrate?
Yeah, that integration would be good with service manager. Would be good. How you achieve that?
Okay.
Good question for you, Robert.
Yeah.
Because I work in a multi-platform environment where we run some Linux machines, Apple, mostly Apple, that's on my table. And one problem we've got with Skype is that we've tried to roll it out all our Windows machine, and that's fine. But the other problem is on the Macs. I got a problem with the install file where I can't install it. So half of our users that actually use Macs predominantly don't get Skype, and it kind of makes it a problem for me when I kind of try to justify it to CFO, like this is a way to go forward and stuff like that, the unified communication, because we got multiple offices, one in LA and one in London. Yeah. So it kind of creates an issue for me in the sense of when I try to justify us rolling it out, when half of our users use Macs and music.
So, and there's one of the, I haven't really given you a proper roadmap session today, which again, if you're interested, we can do at a later date. But the Mac client we've out since 2011. Unfortunately, the release we have is still kind of based on the 2011 client. And so probably the ones that you're trying to roll out is still 2011, although we now are in Skype for Business, I should say, 2016, right? So there's a new client that's been kind of completely developed from the ground up, which is going to be in preview, I think either this month or next month, and then will be actually available by, I think, Q3 this year, which hopefully will then address those type of issues you're talking about.
All right. No,
but it shouldn't, in principle, it shouldn't stop you deploying.
No, because since we rolled out 2016,
yeah,
that's been the issue. Before, when we were using 2013, it was cool, but now that we've rolled out 2016, most of the users that we're using it have issues with it. So
yeah, it shouldn't be. That's something that you really have to get support to look at, because that shouldn't be.
It works fine. You just need to have latest, right?
Okay.
Because we're using it on Macs.
Okay.
Connects fine to 2016.
Yeah. I mean, because that's kind of the normal, the way it normally should be. I agree with the fact that there are still some feature sets that are slightly missing or not really the optimum way in the Mac client, but that's what we're trying to address with the new clients coming out. Okay. Anything else?
I think we're done then.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay, so thank you very much. We're on, myself and colleagues are on hand if you want to pick up further. We'll be very keen to help. So thanks for your attention and interest today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.